All right. Hello. Good afternoon. Please let me know if you can hear me or you're joining us from anywhere in Lagos. My name is Wora Owolabi. I am the digital marketer here at Lotus Capital. Good afternoon. Um, Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Please let me know where you're joining us from. I am digital marketer here at Lotus Capital. My name is Wora Owolabi. So, I've sent it to you. I've sent it to you. Yeah, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. We have about 7 people in the room. We just wanted to be a couple more people. Hi, Lukman Olabanjo, Najib, Mr. Alogba. Please let us know where you are joining us from this lovely afternoon from Lagos, Nigeria. If you can hear me, say hello and just do like a wave or something so that I can know that everybody can hear us this afternoon. My name is Wora Olabi. Okay, so we have a quick hi Abdullah, please. Amo. Hi Ibrahim. Hello Ibrahim. Good afternoon. Hi. Please let me know where you're joining us from. My name again is Worawala Owolabi. I am the lead for communications and corporate communications and digital marketing here in Lotus Capital. Thank you for joining us on this lovely afternoon for the Lotus Financial Intelligence series. Oh, wow, London, that's really great. Hi, Abdulhafiz, good to have you here. I want to know where other people are joining us from. Please let me know so that before we have our guest join the platform this afternoon. Good afternoon, Candy. Good afternoon, Fortune. I'm very well, Fortune. How are you doing this afternoon? Thank you so much for joining us. Our topic today is strategies to rebalance your investment portfolio in H2 2024. That is half year, that's from July to December 2024. So it's going to be a very interesting topic today. I'm waiting for my very esteemed expert person on this topic to join us. And let's hear what he has to say on this really interesting topic for us today. So we're waiting for Amir. So I have Titi Cards, I have Raki's Pastry, I have Ismail Alba. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Please let us know where you're joining us from. That would be really good so that we can get to know each other on this. We want to know our customers here at Lotus Capital, and we are happy to have you join us this afternoon. Okay, so Amir is almost here. Thank you everyone for being patient. Fortune, how are you doing? Let me know. This is a good afternoon. Please, everybody, how are you doing this afternoon? Again, for those joining us, this is Lotus Capital Halal Investment. This is the Lotus Financial Intelligence series where we talk and discuss different topics on how to better educate ourselves on financial intelligence. So we're going to have someone speak to us today on how to rebalance our half year portfolio, and we'll be having him join us in a bit. Okay, so I think I have him here. Hi, Amir. Lovely
Hi,
afternoon to you. Hi.
hi, hi, Rora. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for joining us. Amir is our portfolio manager here at Lotus Capital, and he has all the interesting tidbits for everyone today on those who want to learn about the topic strategies to rebalance your investment portfolio in half year in H2 2024. which is between July to December 2024. So, Amir, quick question. What's your favorite sport?
Hmm.
Let's get to know you a
That,
bit.
that, that would be football, but don't ask me what's my club. I'm not about to disclose that about football.
Hi, Amir, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Did you
Oh,
get that?
yeah. Oh, yes, yes, I just heard you now. So that would be football. Another
Yeah.
one, coffee or tea?
See, definitely.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So I think we know a little bit about you from those questions. So, Amir, we'll just go straight into the topic. What exactly is this phrase called portfolio rebalancing? We've been doing so much promotion about it. People are asking us what's the meaning of it. So, please explain to us what is portfolio rebalancing.
All right, thank you, Wara. So, when we say portfolio rebalancing, essentially what we are talking about is redesigning, or you could say realigning your portfolio to better match your investment goals and objectives,
All
while of
right.
course keeping in mind the macroeconomic environment and how that will affect your portfolio.
Okay. Oh, that's good. So you're saying that we have to be conscious about our macroeconomic environment to rebalance our portfolio. Uh, so are you saying that aside from the objectives, we also have to be conscious? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, most definitely. I mean, if you are rebalancing any portfolio, you need to be conscious of what the macroeconomic environment is doing, because that's most likely to affect how various asset classes will perform in the environment. So yeah, you definitely have to be conscious of the macroeconomic environment.
Oh, okay. All right. No problem. Thank you for that. I mean, consciousness is important. So another question I'll have for you today is how year has gone. So we've done January to June 2024. The year is running faster than we all think it will be. So how would you even score our own macroeconomic environment at the moment? How are we performing as a country at this time?
Hmm. So as a country, Nigeria, I will say the macroeconomic environment has definitely been a tough one. I mean, when you look at the various economic indicators used to score the performance of any economy, I would say
Okay.
Nigeria has scored low on
Oh,
uh, almost all of these indicators. For instance, when you look at the likes of inflation, how has inflation been doing? You'll see that inflation is currently around roughly around 34%. This is
okay.
way higher than the CBN's target inflation rate of 9%. I mean, the last time that we saw inflation at the CBN's target rate was, you would say, around January 2016,
Okay.
which is roughly 8 years ago. So we're definitely scoring low on inflation. When you look at other factors like unemployment, we already have very high unemployment in the country. Even those that are gainfully employed, you would say, sort of underemployed. By
Okay.
underemployed, I mean, yes, for instance, the work that you're doing is definitely below your skills level. We have other various factors. For instance, uh, when you look at interest rate itself, interest rate is too high. It's too high for businesses to be able to survive in that environment.
All
You
right.
also look at, yeah, things like uh, you look at various factors really.
Okay.
Unemployment, yeah, and even the GDP. Okay, looking at the GDP growth, for instance, we are quite already been able to sustain 2-3% growth, roughly thereabouts. While that would have been impressive if we were a developed economy, that growth rate is really low for a developing nation like ours. For
Okay.
Nigeria to truly grow, for the citizenry to feel the impact of this growth, the growth needs to be faster than this. 2-3% is not enough to build industries, create entrepreneurs, and all that.
Okay.
So yeah, I think even with the economic growth aspect, we could do better, especially when you look at it in dollar terms. This 3% growth that I'm mentioning is actually even in naira terms. When you look at this growth rates in dollar terms, Nigeria has actually been contracting. Currently, we are even no longer the largest economy in Africa and all that. So my scorecard for Nigeria is, I would say, the the macroeconomic environment has been a very tough one. I think we score really low in that aspect. Things could be better, and
Okay.
hope they will be better.
We hope that it will get better. I mean, that's the hope for every Nigerian. We hope that this will get better. So, for those joining us, thank you for joining us this lovely afternoon. I have Amir Saleh here, our portfolio manager at Lotus Capital Limited. He is discussing strategies to help you rebalance your investment portfolio in half year, the second half year 2024, which is from July to December 2024. So Amir, I'm going to come back to you again, and I'll say that what is your expectation for this inflation? I mean, everybody knows that prices are going up every day. So what is your expectation, and do you see it slowing down anytime soon?
Okay, so my view on inflation. Before I give my view on inflation, we need to look at the factors that have been influencing inflation in recent time, right? I
Okay.
mean, we already mentioned, yeah, inflation is above 34% currently. That's the inflation figure for June. When you look at some of the factors that have influenced inflation in the last half year, you could look at for instance, the hike in electricity tariff. There is also the removal of fuel subsidy that has made energy costs rise through the roof. There is also
Yeah.
the fact that we have low agricultural yield for produce, so food prices have been up because of that. There is also the fact that exchange rate has also the naira has weakened significantly against other major global currencies.
Okay.
That has made our imports to become more expensive. So all this has tied in together to make price rise. What do I expect for some of this? I Oil prices, that's petroleum price, has to some extent been stable for a while now. If the government is able to maintain its firepower to maintain oil prices at current level, if the government is able to continue to stabilize exchange rate at current level, we're likely to
All
see
right.
a slowdown in inflation. And
Oh, that would be good.
additionally, yes, and additionally, we're entering the harvest season. The harvest season is in the second half of the year, and I
Okay.
expect increased pending other challenges, like for instance, in previous years, we've had to contend with flooding in agrarian communities, and that has led to lower yield, lower agricultural yield. If we do not experience flooding in this current period, yield would likely be better. Would have a bumper
Okay.
harvest. I expect all this to tie in together to help moderate inflation. And even aside that,
Inflation.
there's already what we call in economics higher base effect. So higher base effect is essentially saying that because we are coming from already high prices, so prices in the previous year are already high. So because we are coming from that direction, prices in the future are not likely to rise as much as they rose in the past. So based on that, there's also likelihood that inflation could slow down. So my view on inflation is in the second half of the year, we should expect to see inflation begin to slow down.
Oh, okay. So my question for this question is for the audience, and my own question for you, the audience, people joining us from across the country and outside the country, is where did inflation hit you the most? I mean, Amir has mentioned things like petrol, food, exchange rates. For you personally, where did the current inflation, which is at 34% or more in Nigeria, where did it hit you the most? Before I go back to my my guest today, Amir, who is doing a good job. Thank you, Amir. So now back to you. I would say that, I mean, you told us all these things, harvest, petrol, cost of food and all that. So how did investors perform in the first half of this year? I mean, with all the challenging things that happened in country, how did investors perform in the first half of this year?
Okay, so all right, it's really interesting. I mean, we've all painted how the economy could do better. It's
Okay.
not performing at par, you could say. But even with that, the investing public was able to make a lot of money, I could say, in the first half of the year. The first half of the year was actually very positive, especially for investors in, you could say, real estate, equities, fixed income and whatnot. When you look at, for instance, the equities market, the general market returned roughly 33% in the first half of the year, which is
Okay.
I would say very good. Yeah, and so an investor that was say exposed to the general equities that were in the on the NGX would have earned a return of 33% at the first half of the year. And when you look at some of our funds, for instance, we also have the Lotus Halal ETF, which is an exchange traded fund that tracks the performance of Sharia compliant companies that are currently listed on the Nigerian stock market. And that ETF, for instance, has returned 35% to investors in the first half of the year. So imagine if you invested, say, a 1 million naira at the beginning of
Oh,
2024 in
yeah.
that halal ETF, you would have ended up currently with your 1 million naira will have grown to 101.35 million naira. I mean, that is
Okay.
you say, yeah, very good for an investment period. And
Yes, it's a.
yes, so the environment, even though the environment was tough, it was not doom and gloom. There was still a positive return from the market. But that's not to say that the entire market performed stellar. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. So, for instance, if you're able to identify some of the sectors that performed well, you would have tapped into this return. So investors, for instance, that were exposed to industrial goods stocks
Okay.
recorded a bumper season. They ended up getting a good return. Investors that were exposed to, say, for instance, the oil and gas sector, which has benefited from this removal of fuel subsidy, have also benefited well. But if, for instance, as an investor, say you were invested in the banking sector because of the current recapitalization efforts by banks in that sector, the banking sector did not perform that well. So if you invested in the banking sector, you could have not performed as well as an investor that was invested in, say, industrial goods stocks.
Oil and gas and all that.
Yes, yes, exactly. But looking at that, looking away from those asset classes, you could also look at mutual funds. So, for instance, our funds, we have the Halal Investment Fund, which is a balanced fund that invests in
Yeah.
equities, it invests in fixed income instruments, real estate, commodities. You mentioned it. So that fund, for instance, in the first half of the year, returned over 10% to investors in only the first
That's
half of the year.
impressive.
Yes, we also have another portfolio, which is the fixed income fund, which has a lower amount of risk than the halal investment fund, and that fund returned in excess of 7% to investors. So, quite all right, the macroeconomic environment was very tough, but even with that, portfolio managers that were able to identify those key sectors that would outperform the general market were able to return good returns to investors.
Right. Thank you, Amir. And for some people, I'm just going to read out where inflation hit them the most. I mean, Farida says transportation. Farouk says energy cost, food, transportation, data cost. I mean, everybody's complaining. Only Salaha says petrol. I mean, I will join that. I mean, petrol. Again, let me look for another person. Dara Omolola says food and rent. A lot of people talking about how where inflation hits them the most. So for anybody that has a question already for Amir, please start dropping them in the comment section. We will go through them at the end. And if you also want to tell us where inflation hit you the most, you can also drop that in the comment section as well, and we'll read them. So my next question, Amir, for you is, what is your outlook for the second half of the year? And you've mentioned inflation possibly slowing down. Do you have the same view when it comes to the interest rates?
Okay, so Ura, before I get to your question on interest rates, I think I would also like to mention where inflation has hit me the most.
Oh, okay,
For me, I
that's
would
true.
yes, yes, yes,
Yeah, apologies.
because
I
it
should
has
have
also
asked you
affected me. For
that.
me, I would say it's the price
Yeah.
of tea. I've already mentioned to you earlier. Like, so yeah, the price of
Sure.
tea has gone up.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I mean, looking at for instance, the interest rate environment, I think it will be a tricky one. From all that I've been seeing in recent time, from the utterances of the, for instance, CBN governor, as well as inflation that continues to increase. Inflation figure that came in for June, it came in above
Okay.
35%. I think all indications point to the likelihood of further rate hike. So all indications point to the likelihood of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank continuing to maintain interest rates at an elevated level. To me personally, I think I will prefer if the Monetary Policy Committee retains interest rates at the current level,
All right.
because we have been hiking interest rates, right? In this
Yeah.
year alone, we've hiked interest rate by roughly 7.5%. So, and if
Mm.
that has not helped reduce inflation, then I think one thing that even the CBN needs to do is maybe sit down and look at it. Okay, we've hiked interest rates, inflation is not coming down. What's the reason? Is even interest rate the key determinant of inflation now in Nigeria? In the case of Nigeria, I mean, interest rate is just one determinant. There are various other determinants, and especially when you
Yeah.
look at Nigeria's inflation rate, our inflation is a bit peculiar in the sense that while inflation mostly tends to be demand push, so by demand push, I mean it's because a lot of people have money, so they're trying to buy stuff. So because everybody wants to buy stuff, and the supply is limited, then the price of stuff ends up going up. But in the case of
Mm.
Nigeria, it's more a case of the inputs, right? The input cost. So if interest rate is already high and you're hiking interest rate further, it's what will that would only mean that as a business, when I want to borrow money to undertake any capital project, I would have to borrow at a higher cost, right? And when I borrow at a higher cost, I would inadvertently end up transferring that higher cost to the end consumer,
To the
you and
goods. Yeah.
Exactly. So if we continue hiking interest rates, that means it could continue to also lead to further inflation, and then the cycle will just continue. So what I would prefer is for the CBN to sit down, strategize, look at it. Okay, there are other avenues to tackle inflation, because this inflation is not because you and I have a lot of money and we are just spending anyhow. The wallets are
Mm.
already tight for the general consumer in the market, right? So that's my expectation. But again, with that, I still see the likelihood of further of the CBN maintaining its hawkish stance.
The
If we
hawkish
are
stance.
to see any further decline in interest rates, it's likely not to come in this year. Any decline in interest rates will most likely come maybe sometime in 2025.
Mm. Okay.
Though I expect inflation to start to moderate in this year, and that should be a signal for the central bank to start maybe cutting interest rate. So
All
unless
right.
inflation starts to decline, we're not likely to see any cut in interest rate.
So my dream of bringing inflation down to single digits. Mm.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's very optimistic. I would also love to see inflation at that level, but I do not see it coming to that level
all right.
in the coming years. Yeah.
Okay, so what about the equities market? I mean, you talked about the interest rates and the performance of the markets in H1. So do you see it also replicating the whole 35% in the ETF and how the fixed income and balanced funds perform? Do you see it replicating itself that way as well?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So, looking at the performance of the equities market, yes, quite alright. The equities market recorded a sellout in 33%. That's a very good return by any magnitude, right? Anywhere in the world, 33% is very good. So, but that 33% meant prices of securities went up by 33%, right? So that means
Yeah.
valuation is already up. Do I see the equities market closing the year with a good return? Yes, most likely. I foresee the equities market closing the year with very good return. Do I see it's also replicating the same return that I did in the first half of the year? Don't forget, it's already done 33%. If it is to do another 33%, that's already at 66%, right? Do I see the market closing the year with a 66% return? Most likely not. I mean, a lot of investors have entered this market at the beginning of the year. These investors have made a lot of money. 33% is a lot. We're likely to see some of these investors begin to take profit in H2. And this
Okay.
taking profit is not, I've taken my money, I'll run away. No. Because yield in fixed income market is already high, what we are likely to see is a rebalancing of portfolio. We are likely to see investors moving out of equities and more tuning their investment to fixed income instruments, which already have high yields. I mean, getting say a return of 20% in fixed income instrument that carries a lower amount of risk to the equities is, you will say, something very good, right? So I see investors more tilting towards fixed income markets, but that's not to say that the entire equities market will not perform well. No, there are still those securities that are currently undervalued. We are likely to see positive sentiments sustain in some of those securities. We are likely to see some securities perform really well. We are likely
Okay.
to see some perform not so well. So it will depend on the ability of the portfolio manager, of the fund manager, to
Mm,
identify those key sectors, those key securities that will perform really well in the second half of the year, and investing in those sectors. So
okay.
for our managed funds, I expect our return to sustain our current rate of return to even
Okay.
surpass what we are currently doing, because that will hinge on the ability of the portfolio manager to identify these key sectors and invest in them.
All right. So,
Yeah.
all in all, I'm hearing it's the job of the portfolio manager to identify the good, the perfect places to invest, the balanced place to invest money into. That's what I'm hearing, which is good. But also, so I'm going to talk about the sectors now. What sectors do you think will perform well in H2? I mean, you said it, oil and gas performed well in H1. The banking industry faced some reforms, so that impacted them negatively. So this H2, what do you think will happen with those sectors, and which one do you think will perform well?
Okay, that's a very good question, Laura. So, looking at the general environment, the investment environment, sectors that are likely to perform well, I would say the financial services sector, mostly
Okay.
because it's, you could say, at the center of most of the economic reforms that are being announced by the federal government, by both the federal as well, by both the fiscal as well as the monetary authorities. So the financial services sector should be a very good one. Aside the financial services sector, you could look at the ICT, so information communication technology. So, for instance, for the ICT, because their services that they render have become sort of a necessity for you and I. You're not likely to say reduce your data consumption just because there is a hike in data tariff uh, by telecommunication companies, right? So even
Okay.
if there is a hike in data tariff, you'll still continue to use data. Even if there is a hike in a call calls, you'll still continue to make calls.
We still
So
have to buy. We still have to buy data and recharge cards.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, exactly. So you still have to use those services. So because those services have become a necessity, I still see the ICT sector continuing to uh, perform well in the second half of the
Okay.
year. And I know, for instance, the telecommunication players have seriously been engaging with it's their regulator, which is the NCC, to allow them to even hike tariff. And though
Mm.
as a consumer, I don't want to see that tariff hike, right? But I
Yeah,
know once their regulator approves that,
it's
I will still
expected.
use their products and services, and they will end up making more money for it. So yeah, ICT is another sector. And aside that, you'll also look at the oil and gas sector. I mean, it performed well in H1, and I see it also sustaining that performance in H2, mostly on the
Okay.
back of the fact that there has been a couple of reforms in the oil and gas sector. There has been the removal of fuel subsidy, and these oil and gas players have benefited a lot from this removal of fuel subsidy. So I see oil and gas stocks also performing really well in the period.
All right. For those that are joining us, thank you for joining us on this lovely afternoon. We are discussing strategies to help you rebalance your investment portfolio in half year, the second half of the year 2024. And we are speaking with Amir Saleh, portfolio manager here at Lotus Capital Limited. I know a lot of people have questions about the money part, which is what I'm going to ask Amir now. Amir, if I have 100,000 naira right now, where would you advise me to invest? And I want people to listen. I'm going to say the question again. If I have 100,000 naira right now, where would you advise me to invest?
Oh, that's simple, Rora. I'll say mutual funds.
Everything, the whole of it?
Yeah, most definitely, the whole of it. I
Okay.
mean, it's a no-brainer, right? It's a no-brainer, right? If you have 100,000 naira, or if you have a million naira, or even 10 million naira, that asset is not large enough for you to be able to properly analyze the market, properly invest in various sectors, diversify your portfolio, create a portfolio that will be resilient in the face of macroeconomic headwinds, right?
Okay.
So, your best bet is a mutual fund. If you place your 100K in a mutual fund, because that mutual fund, the fund manager is pulling together the funds of various investors. There is one with 100K, another one with 10K, another with 10 million. Bring everything together and invest for everybody. So because that fund is now larger, it gives the fund manager or the portfolio manager a better room to be able to diversify the investments. And
Okay.
as well as when you invest with a fund manager, when you invest in a mutual fund, you get the added advantage of having a portfolio manager, a team of analysts, constantly monitoring and analyzing the financial markets to identify investment opportunities for you and invest your money in good yielding investment
Okay.
opportunities. So yeah, I mean, anytime, any day, I would advise you to put your money in a mutual fund,
Mutual
and
fund.
that cuts across whether you are a novice investor or you are a veteran. I think mutual funds is always a good idea.
So whether it's 100,000 naira or 1 million or 1 billion, as long as
Yes,
it's a
yes,
mutual
yes,
fund,
exactly.
and
Okay, look at it. If you have 100,000 naira and you want to invest in real estate, which property will you be able to buy for 100,000 naira? Think
that's
about it.
true. Okay.
Which commodities will you be able to buy and properly sell for 100,000 naira? But if you place it in a mutual fund with a portfolio manager, that fund manager will
Mhm.
be able to spread those funds properly, invest in real estate, invest in commodities, fixed income, equities, all the asset classes, really.
So cook everything. I mean,
Yes,
very
yes, yes,
possible.
yes, yes,
Interesting.
definitely.
And that's the good thing about it is that that's what we do at Lotus Capital. We help our customers invest their funds in balance funds, in mutual funds. We are your entry into the fund management part of this sector, which is really good. Um, so
Definitely.
yeah. I'm expecting questions. If nobody has a question, then we'll be rounding up the session pretty soon. Thank you all for joining us this lovely afternoon. We're discussing strategies to rebalance your portfolio and to help you invest your funds properly in the second half of the year. Tiwa, okay, we'll get to your question very soon. My final question for you, Amir, before we go into our audience question is, what's that one investment advice you have for us today?
Hmm. Okay, so my one investment advice, and this is including for me and for you as well, were, and for our audience,
Okay,
is don't be
for
scared
our
to
audience.
invest. Don't be scared to invest.
Okay,
I mean, yes, you should always take a risk. Obviously, it should be a calculated risk, but don't be scared to invest. The later you wait to start investing, the more you are losing out on returns. So, for instance, currently, if you have not invested in an ETF, you have already lost 35% this year, right? If you've not invested if your 1 million naira, you kept it in your bank in January, you would have lost 350,000 naira. That's for certain, as opposed to if you had invested it in for instance,
yeah,
ETF. So one thing I always advise is don't be scared to invest.
okay,
Start investing now. The earlier you start investing, honestly, especially your future self would thank you. The earlier you start investing, the better. And an additional thing, diversify, 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 which is why fund
very
managers
important.
help you to, yes, they help you to diversify your assets. Because if you put all your eggs in one basket, right, when the basket crashes, then what happens? But if you put all those eggs in, say for instance, a mutual fund, that mutual fund did not put everything in one basket, right?
Yeah,
It's diversified. So yeah, diversify, diversify, diversify.
I think that's very important, and I want to reiterate it to our audience here: diversify, diversify, diversify. I mean, spread your tentacles as much as possible using a really reliable fund manager like Lotus Capital to help you spread those tentacles into different sectors that you may not even have the proper information on how to go about it or how to go about investing. So I have the major question I have from my audience here is now, how do we even get started on mutual funds, or how do I invest in mutual funds? So I think I will be able to answer that question. So for anybody who is ready to start investing, is very simple. We are Lotus Capital. We are located in Lagos, Abuja, Kano, and different service centers across the country. I would have somebody put email into the comment section. So you can send us an email at info at Lotus Capital Limited lotuscapitallimited.com, info@lotuscapitallimited.com, and we're there to help you, respond to you about, with your inquiries, or you can call any of our phone numbers, which is 090-8705-8405 or 090-8705-8406. Or you can just send us a DM on any of the social media platforms that you are watching us from right now, and we'll be able to take you through on, take you through on how to even start investing. Thank you so much. I want to see if there's any other question here. Uh, yeah, Farouk says electricity is already very expensive. Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I know that we Nigerians will be able to scale through, and before the end of the year, we'll be able to thank our God that it was a pleasant year for us. So if we do not have any other question, that will be all. Amir, thank you so much for joining us this lovely afternoon. And we hope to have you back very soon again on another session, teaching our people financial intelligence, what they have to do to become better informed about the finance market. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this afternoon. So we'll come your way very soon. Bye for now.
All right. Thank you very much for having me, Laura. It was a real
Thank you,
pleasure
Amir.
being here with you today.
Thank you. All right. Bye.